Namaste and welcome to Insight UK podcast on Kumbh Melā. Today we have with us Siddhānta Golwalkar ji. He is a final year undergraduate at the University of Oxford, reading for a BA in Sanskrit and Greek. He is interested in understanding the historical development of modern Indian languages, why each modern Indian language develops from Sanskrit in the way that it does, if it does indeed develop from Sanskrit. He also enjoys studying epic literature in Sanskrit, Hindi, and Marathi, and the representation of heroism therein. Namaste, Siddhānta. Siddhānta, would you please begin by explaining what does the word Kumbha mean? And what are the origins of Kumbh Melā? Which are the places it is usually held?
Sure, yeah. So the word Kumbha in Sanskrit, it means pot. And the mythological sort of significance of the name is from the Sagara Manthan story, so the churning of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So when the gods and the demons sort of churn the ocean to get amrita, nectar from it, it came in a pot, and then that pot was carried by Mohini to heaven. So while that was happening, 4 drops of amrita supposedly spilled onto the earth. And these were at Prayāgarāj, Haridwār, Ujjain, and Nāsik. And these are the 4 locations of the Mela. This is sort of the mythological side. And then if you look at the history of the Mela, you actually don't have many textual references to the Kumbh Melā by name in the oldest literature. But what you do have are references to melas at Prayāgarāj, Haridwār, and Ujjain and Nāsik, but separately.
Okay.
So the Mela at Haridwār was, I think, generally called the Kumbh Melā. And then in the 19th and 20th century, all of these sort of came together in one tradition. So then every one of these started to sort of be called the Kumbh Melā.
Okay.
So you have individual evidence for melas at each of these locations, but they were called something different. So I think in Prayāgraja, the one there was called the Mahā Kumbh because it is celebrated in the Magh month. And then when it came under the Kumbh tradition, it began to be called the Kumbh Melā. And then in 2019, the terminology was sort of changed again by Yogi Adityanath ji. And so before that, the Mahākumbh was the one that would happen sort of once in, I think, 144 years. But now the Mahākumbh is the one that happens in 12 years. And the one that happens after 6 years is called the Kumbh Melā.
Okay.
So this is a very recent change. This change happened 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And the general sort of history of the Kumbh is around 2 centuries. But the melas themselves have been going on for a very long time. So you have references to bathing at Prayāgarāj in even, I think, the Vedas, because it's very significant in terms of it's a confluence of 3 rivers. So it's called the Triveni Sangam. It means like the meeting of 3 braids or something like that. And the rivers are Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati. So bathing there is said to sort of clear you of all your sins.
January is the Mahā Kumbh.
Yes, the one that will be held now from 13th of January to 26th February is the Mahā Kumbh.
Okay, and that's the one that is celebrated once in 12 years.
That's celebrated once in 12 years now, yes.
Okay, and is it because of the significance of the planetary motion, the Jupiter, which goes through the sun, once in 12 years? That's probably also the
so it is related to that, but whether sort of that is precise with the other melas. So the mela held at Haridwār is certainly based on the planetary motions.
Okay.
But and that's why we think that it's the original Kumbh Melā, because it sort of, like you said, it's based on the motions of Jupiter. Whether the one at Prayāgarāj and the others at Ujjain and Nāsik are sort of also within that system in terms of the astrology is a bit uncertain, I would say.
Okay.
I'm not an astrological expert, but yeah, I think it's a bit uncertain. And the
Okay.
Ujjain and Nāsik Melas are a bit different from the ones in Prayāgraja and Haridwār, because they happen, so the dates are based on the Mela in Prayāgraj. So it's not exactly, and they happen sort of, so both of them happen within 1 year. So
Okay.
there isn't a gap of like 3 or 4 years between the Ujjain and Nashik Melas. And yeah, so based on that, I wouldn't say that those two are based on the astrological positions, but the one at Haridwar is definitely based on the astrological positions.
Okay. So now that you've set the historical context and the significance of the Kumbh Mela, moving on, the Kumbh Mela is one of the largest pilgrimage on, celebrated on earth. It's a festival. It's the greatest confluence of humanity, celebrating human values such as love, peace, and coexistence. Yet popular culture and Western media have trivialized the Kumbh Mela to a festival of naked men. Why do you think this is so? And do you think times have changed?
I think that, it's not easy to understand the Kumbh and what it is about. And I certainly find it very difficult. And I struggle to sort of have a cohesive idea when I was reading up on it. And I think this is because it is so large and the attendees are so varied that it is difficult to define, sort of particularly in Western terms. So if you think about religion in Western terms, the vocabulary that you would use is generally maybe Christian or Abrahamic in general. And this kind of stuff is difficult to define with those words.
Right.
And historically, from the colonial time period, there has been a bias against the East. So sort of people have looked at it as, backward and maybe a bit weird, in the sense that they want to highlight the differences between the West and the East, but not in a wholesome way.
Right.
But I think this is the cause of sort of why, there are these ideas of the Kumbh as you said, a festival of naked men. But I think this is definitely changing now. So I have watched some very nice documentaries that have been produced, I think, in the last 10 or 20 years, I'd say. So there was this one produced by BBC that tried to depict, I think it was an actor, a British actor, who didn't really have any knowledge of Hinduism or India, sort of coming to Kumbh and spending time there and really trying to understand what it was all about. And that documentary is very nice. And it's not, it doesn't try to trivialize the Kumbh, like you said. That's a very nice phrasing. And yeah, I think another one that I watched was from National Geographic, and they sort of focused on the administration of the Kumbh. So how the government is trying to manage such a big pilgrimage, and how so many people coming along. And I think so it depends on your perspective as well, or like the perspective of the people looking at it. So if you want to sort of look at, if you just want to say, okay, well, it's very different, but then you don't understand what actually the difference is, then you are going to sort of end up trivializing the pilgrimage.
Right. And as you mentioned, since the West comes from a monotheistic tradition, so to understand, where you have so many sampradayas, people from all over Bharat coming from different lineages coming together. So and it's polytheistic in nature. So I think it might be a bit difficult for the Western mindset to appreciate.
I think they didn't have the necessary vocabulary, and then they even didn't have the necessary just concepts to put the ideas to sort of slot the ideas in. So they didn't, I think, know what to make of what they saw at the Kumbh, especially sort of the earliest documents or reports that Western, I'd say, I don't know, tourists or even administrators have written about the Kumbh. Yeah, they just can't contextualize it because they don't know what it's meant to signify. I think this is a struggle for all of us, sort of us who are disconnected a bit from, you know, our religious roots, that even we can't actually contextualize it, but we have sort of an inherent respect because we are from that tradition, even if we don't know much about it. Whereas that's not the case for people who are truly sort of foreign to Bharat.
Yes, I agree with what you're saying. Like, we have an inherent Shraddha and Bhakti.
Exactly, yeah.
It's a tradition which probably the West lacks in understanding. Yes, and you also mentioned about the administration, the Kumbh Nagari. Would you just give us a glimpse of the Kumbh Nagari, which is a temporary mega city assembled from scratch within only 2 months before the Mela begins? What is the scale of preparation in terms of infrastructure, the transport services, food and water supplies, medical facilities, security, and technology provided by the administration to successfully conduct the largest mass gathering on earth?
Yeah, this is truly impressive. So the reason you have only 2 months for the tent city to be set up is that the land where the city is set up is actually submerged during the monsoon because it's so close to the river. So 2 months before the Mela, they have to set up an entire city, which is always, so every Mela, it is growing because more and more people want to come. And the UP government has established a separate office for managing the Mela. This is called the Prayāgarāj Mela Authority. And every Mela sort of cycle, they have special IS officers appointed to come in just to manage the Mela. And so far, they've had sort of really good preparations in terms of firefighting vehicles and having them on site, in terms of having doctors and even like hospital tents on site to help out pilgrims who may sort of have any health problems or something. And the security is incredible. So there's some nice videos on YouTube for anyone interested about this, but they show how the police teams are set up around the Mela and even in the railway stations. So to sort of monitor and track people as they come in. So you're monitoring people right when they enter Prayāgarāj and then as they go into the Mela city. And and the rail stations have also sort of been refurbished to deal with pilgrims. So more trains are being run. So I think they're running 3,000 more trains during the period of the Mela. So just sort of connecting Prayāgarāj with the surrounding locations. So Lucknow and Varanasi and and also so we have some statistics from the 2019 Mela, which are eye-opening, honestly. So we tend to think of, so the first time I told my friends, I guess in the UK, about going to the Kumbh, they were like, won't you get sick from the water or the food? And the case is that it's actually not that common, because in the 2019 Mela, they spent around 210 crore rupees. That's, I think, around, I don't know, 20 million pounds, if I'm right, just on water filtration and purification. So if they're making arrangements to that scale, it's way cleaner and way safer than you think. And I think the reason for this is that if they don't manage it so well, and people come in and then they get ill and then they pollute the river, it's going to be more problems for the administration itself to manage that later on. So they are sort of really, on top of their game to manage manage the Mela and set it up to a point where it's also environmentally sustainable. So, you know, they don't want to leave Prayāgarāj filthy for its sort of local citizens as well. So they want to leave it clean and tidy, and they also want to make sure it's clean while the pilgrimage is going on, and they want to make sure it's safe as well for everybody. So, you know, you don't get injured because of the throngs, and yeah.
So utmost care is taken, you know, but
A
sanitation.
lot of care is taken, yeah,
Yeah.
in terms of sanitation and safety and health and food as well. So everybody, yeah, you have, apart from this, you also have volunteers who sort of help out the government with this kind of stuff. So you have volunteer tents for medical services, and you have volunteer tents for food and water, and even I think transport. So people run some forms of free transport between the Mela city and the bus stations and the train stations, so as to facilitate the journey of the pilgrims.
Right. And I believe a new expressway is being built, which is going to
This
be
new
built.
expressway is being built. Yeah, I think they've built a new bridge as well on the Ganga somewhere.
Right. And this also gives a lot of job opportunities. It helps the commerce and industry in Uttar Pradesh. You know, I think it's called the Rozgar Mela, where like thousands of people have got employment in the Kumbh Mela itself. So yeah, so I mean, moving to the Adhyatmic part of the Kumbh Mela, we have like so many sadhus coming there. So would you like to explain what does the word sadhu mean? And you know, if you would like to share a little bit about the different akhadas, the sampradayas, and how the Kumbh Mela begins with the Śāhī Snāna and the Grand Peshwai.
Sure, yeah. So the word sadhu in Sanskrit, it means good or decent or virtuous as an adjective. And then as a noun, it means a noble person or a sage. And that's what's sort of come down into modern Indian languages. So if you think about it in Hindi or Marathi, it means something like a sage or a renunciate or a hermit, right? But the sadhus of the akhadas in particular at the Kumbh Mela are supposed to be warrior sages. So they were historically nomadic warrior groups that would, so their duty is to protect dharma, and they consider themselves to be the custodians of dharma. So if you go to the Mela and you talk to a sadhu and you say that, well, why do you do what you do, right? Which is a very important question. Why do you follow this lifestyle? You know, why do you do so much of tapas and sadhana and live alone from society? And they say that, okay, we do this because nobody else does it, and if we don't do it, dharma will collapse. So now they consider themselves to be sort of warriors who protect dharma, and an akhada is basically a group of sadhus with an internal hierarchy. And then even from the word akhada, you sort of get a sense of the martial origins of the sadhus, because generally you use an akhada for wrestlers or, you know, martial artists. So it's you wouldn't think of it as a group of like calm people. There is a martial connotation to that. And there are many akhadas. So I think that they're grouped into three main categories. So you have the Shaiva akhadas, you have the Vaishnava akhadas, and then you also have the Sikh akhadas, which are very interesting. And all of them are associated with some or the other sampradaya. So a sampradaya is a tradition of unbroken teaching. And a lot of these akhadas, they sort of trace, or they sort of attach themselves to the Dashanami Sampradaya, which is supposedly no, I mean, supposedly is the wrong word, which is traditionally ascribed to Adi Shankaracharya. So he is said to have founded the Dashanami Sampradaya, and that was, as I understand it, a collection of sort of monastic orders. So they all believe in different things. It's not, but they are sort of associated together in by their origin, I think. And yeah, so the Mela is, so the akhadas are a big part of the Melas, right? So the Peshwai is their procession for when they enter the Mela, or when they are sort of going for their Śāhī Snāna. And this is a display of their strength. So they come in their groups, and then they have elephants and horses and chariots, and then they have displays going on. So if you've seen a danpatta or a sword, so they're doing their martial acrobatics and that kind of stuff while they're going through to their tent and camp locations, or from their tent and camp locations to the riverbanks to bathe. And then the bath is, of course, the thing that everybody knows about, the Śāhī Snāna. It's the auspicious occasion for bathing. So I think in this Mahā Kumbh we have 6 Śāhī Snānas. The first one is, I think, the 13th of January, and then you have one on the 14th, and then the 29th as well, and so on and so forth. But this is when everybody sort of goes to bathe, and there is great prestige in who gets to bathe first. So there used to be competition within the akhadas for this honor, and you've actually had fights as well, which just goes to show how important this is
Right.
in terms of prestige. So now it is all pre-planned. Now everybody knows which akhada is going first, and then which akhada is going to be following. But before, it used to be, it wasn't so well planned, and then you would have some fights or some sort of ruckus to actually get into the water.
Yes, I can imagine, because you just have like millions of people coming there, and this is such an auspicious and a cosmic event, and everybody wants to be part of this cosmic event. Everybody wants to experience this the mysticism around the Kumbha Mela. Yeah, and as you said, the Kumbha Mela is truly a sangam of traditional akhadas, sampradayas, even new age movements like ISKCON, Art of Living, the TA movement, and others peacefully coexisting, thriving and celebrating it with art, music, literature, and food. Even the Tirthyatris belong to various backgrounds coming from all over Bharat. It's also where the sadhus who have renounced the world come together with the Tirthyatris, who are mostly householders. How does this miracle of a Sangam manifest? And why is it not celebrated or embraced, but actually shown, in a poor light in the West, or even sensationalized at times?
I think like we sort of talked about before, there is a factor of a biased perspective. But apart from that, there have been some mishaps in the history of the Kumbh that I think have contributed to this flawed understanding.
Okay.
But the way I think about this is, when you have a lot of people coming together, it is bound to be difficult to manage.
Okay.
And regardless of how well you administrate, even the administrators are fallible. So some accidents are inevitable. But the thing that is most impressive is that even with such a gathering, everybody comes with positive intentions. Everybody wants to learn. Everybody wants to meet gurus and understand about different traditions, and of course bathe at the Sangam. But I think that when millions of people come together, even the fact that they want to be peaceful is worth celebrating.
True.
And when you sort of look at maybe the accidents of the past, it's you're missing the point, because you're just focusing on the negative. And also, I think people in general have a misconception that public places in India are very dirty, and they think that this is amplified by the size of such a gathering. So they think, it's not going to be clean. But as I've talked about before, the sanitation is of top priority for the administration, because it is in their benefit to have a clean and sanitary Mela. So I think the Mela being shown in a poor light in the West is changing, and I think it's based more on an outdated view of India in general,
Right.
than based on than being based on the reality in India, especially the present reality, which is miles apart from what we would have had during the colonial times, or even during like the 2000s, so even 15 years ago.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, times have changed because we also have a lot of white Hindus living in the West who participate in the Kumbh, and who take this message of Sanatan Dharma to the rest of the world. So perceptions are changing. Yes, and about the sensationalizing, sometimes you do see images, of the Kumbh, of maybe some sadhus, doing some intense tapas, like, some sadhus, sleeping on a bed of nails, and standing on one leg, who've been standing on one leg for many years. So these kind of it may seem exotic for some, but also quite difficult for somebody with a Western mindset to understand. Yeah, so this is true. And about the Adhyatmic wisdom behind the Kumbh Mela, what are the rishis, sadhus, sadhvis, and tirthyatris seeking? And they're enduring such intense sadhana and tapasya for it. So, what is it that they're seeking?
I think this is very difficult to answer. But personally, I feel that the thing that the tirthyatris are seeking is different, because for them, like you mentioned, they are householders, they are grihasthas, and they come to the Mela, but for them it's not a part of their lifestyle. So you have Kalpavasis who basically stay at the Mela for the entire duration, and they sort of fast, or they keep some form of vrat where they are eating maybe limited amounts of food, or they're not consuming meat. I mean, nobody consumes meat at the Mela. It's all vegetarian. And even this, though it seems hard, is not part of your lifestyle, right? So even if you're staying there for the entire time, you're only doing it once in 12 years. Right. And that's sort of a bit easier to manage. But sadhus, like the people who are actually living this kind of a lifestyle, they sacrifice a lot for it. So you have to live away from cities, you have to live away from your families as well. And you can't be married, you can't have children, and you're basically sort of going against, I guess, everything that a person generally would want in life, right? People want things like a job, a partner, that kind of stuff. So if you leave out all the material stuff, you surely would want something that is more. And then for I think individual people, it might be moksha, it might be the darshan of somebody, a god that they are worshipping. But I think this is difficult to answer, because I think that people just want different things. But even the discipline required to do this is actually very commendable. And I sort of personally, I respect that, because that is, even if somebody is not spiritually evolved, just to want to be on that path and to do so much. So, like you said, you have people who've been standing on one leg, I have seen people who have had their arms raised for like 40 or 50 years. That's very impressive. Like even just in and of itself, that is very commendable, is what I feel. So I don't know, the Adhyatmic wisdom, I think, is for everybody to find out and everybody to experience for themselves. So I would suggest that you meet these people, you talk to them, and then you try to figure out what they want and which of their sort of tenets that you actually believe in or would like to learn more about yourself.
And as you mentioned, there's for the Tirthyatris, it's about the bhojan and the bhajan and the celebration. And and for the Kalpavasis, they are accessing a higher dimension. And I think it's as a Tirthyatri for us, I think it's like getting a slice of that or getting a glimpse of that higher dimension.
Exactly.
That mystical experience, just to be with them for a few days, even though we cannot practice this intense sadhana like they do. But yeah, just getting a taste of it would be nice for the Tirthyatris.
Sure, yeah.
And Siddhānji, coming to the study tour that you have organized, would you please share some information about it and how can anyone who's interested participate in it? What to expect out of the study tour and how do we prepare for it?
Sure. So we'll be going to Prayāgarāj on the 17th of Jan, and we'll be staying there for 10 days. We'll be staying in tents in the Mela. So we'll be part of the Mela itself. And of course, we'll be seeing everything. So we'll be going to the Akhada camps to see them. And then there's some other attractions that I think are first time for a Kumbh Mela. I've read about laser shows and drone shows as well, which just goes to show how modern this all is becoming. But yeah, and so we'll definitely take a look at everything that a Mela tourist would want to look at. And also we'll be reading Sanskrit texts related to this. So we are planning to read some Kumbha Mahatmya, which talks about the history and the greatness of the Kumbh, basically. So why is it so significant? But like I said, there aren't very many texts related to this. So we'll also be reading some other stuff which is thematically related to the Kumbh. So this would be the Shad Darshanas, so the philosophical systems. So what we sort of want to do is talk about why people are pursuing this paths that they are for spiritual sort of development. And then people will actually get to see the examples in the Mela. So we want to help people understand exactly why the sadhus do the types of tapas that they do, which was your last question. We want to help people understand that for themselves through reading the texts that these practices are based on, and actually experiencing the practices in real life. So we'll also have some yoga classes and some spoken Sanskrit classes as well. And it runs from Prayāgarāj to Prayāgrāj. So anybody who's interested in participating, we would want them to join on the 17th at Prayāgarāj. And so yeah, like I said, we would stay in tents, and the accommodation, the food, and the teaching is all organized by us. The participants would have to organize their own travel up to Prayāgarāj and then back as well.
And as you said, it's been modernized a lot. Like a lot of akhadas, they have a lot of information, online. Some of them are even on Instagram. And I think there's also a computer Baba who has a laptop all the time with him. So it's not like in the past. Even the sadhus, some of the sadhus, yes, some of the sadhus don't even want to speak, but there are some sadhus who have, who are on internet and who do who are tech savvy probably, and who do advertise a bit about their sadhana.
Definitely.
Yes. Yeah. And would you like to share any final thoughts about about Kumbh Mela? I mean, I remember my experience from 2019 Kumbh Mela. I had the opportunity to experience the Kumbh Mela. It's sometimes very difficult to put it in words because it is so vast. The whole Kumbh experience is so vast. We've tried to put some information, share some information over here, but the mystical aspect of the Kumbh Mela is something that we just need to experience. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I definitely agree with that. So I would say that even if you can't make it this Kumbh Mela, you should definitely aim to go to the Kumbh Mela one at least, because being part of something that is sort of so much bigger than yourself is a different experience. Like you said, it can't be put into words. But for more information on this, there are some very interesting books, and the Mahākumbha website itself is very well designed, and it has a lot of resources to for people to find out about the Kumbh Mela and exactly what it is about. Because, like I said, the information tends to be sort of very very separated, and I think maybe slightly on purpose it tends to be a bit obfuscated, just so that the sense of mysticism remains as well. So I would encourage anybody who's interested in learning more about the Mela to look up the Mahākumbha website, which has some very good which even has a nice bibliography, which I think people might find interesting. But yeah, apart from that, nothing much.
Thank you so much for sharing your timeless wisdom with us, Siddhānji. And really looking forward to the study tour if some of us can make it. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Dhanyavad and namaste.
Thank you for having me on the podcast. I hope that you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did, and I hope that the listeners found something interesting to learn more about.
Yes, there's so little we know about the Kumbh Mela sometimes.
Exactly.
From the images. So it's been a learning experience, and hopefully, by Ishwara's grace, I can make it sometime to the Kumbh Mela. Thank you.